Hello, everyone. It's really great honor to be here again. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching our webinar. So today we'll be talking about hybrid monetization and growth strategy in mobile gaming. You know, the hybrid games is getting bigger and more important topic in mobile gaming. So let's actually invite our great speakers today. So let's invite Georg Baumgarte from Wooga, who will be talking about hybrid monetization. Let's invite Tomer Weisman from Huuuge Games and Mateusz Bocheńczak from Google. And so at the beginning, please, guys, introduce yourself and then say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. So happy to be here with you guys. So my name is Georg. I joined the games industry 10 years ago. I'm based in Berlin, and I will reserve the rest for my presentation to give you a little bit more quick and painless intro about myself.
Hey, hi everyone. Glad to be here as well. My name is Tomer. I've been in the gaming industry for the past 5 years, based in Tel Aviv. And like Georg said, I think I will introduce myself and Huuuge Games in the presentation later on.
Hey guys, and I'm Mati. I'm also very excited about what we're gonna see here in this webinar. I'm working with the gaming studios across EMEA and helping them with achieving the sustainable and efficient growth.
As always, we would like you actually to invite you to add some questions, and which you can actually do at the Slido. So please actually go to the www.slide.do and join our event via GameCamp. So you just write GameCamp and then you join the event. And please join discussion to ask some questions. You can actually add your anything that relates to the topic. And actually at the beginning, we would like to ask you maybe to share which country are you connecting from. Please let us know which country are you coming from. So yes, we see the info coming. Let's wait like 40 seconds more. Okay, so we have Poland, Serbia, Belarus, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Turkey, Finland, France, Uruguay, Belarus, any other, Denmark, Russia as well. Any other country? Ireland, of course. No. Okay, so please join our event at slido.com. So of course, it's not the last webinar. Please save the date for the next one that will be happening on 23rd of July. It will be more around understanding the user insights, understanding the user persona based on the data and based on the community management. So let's not waste more time on this. So please actually if you could actually share a little bit more about yourself. So if you could just add, if you could join the slido.com again and share with us what monetization methods are you using in your games. Because of course that's additional info for the speakers to focus on specific topics. Especially if we talk about hybrid, so we have mainly in-app purchases, reward video, yeah, interstitial as well. Okay, so in-app purchases are leading, but rewarded video as well. Yes. Okay, rewarded video. Let's wait like 20 seconds more. Okay, there is other as well, banners. Okay, thank you for that. So with that, let's go to our first presentation. So let's invite to the stage Georg Baumgarte, that will be talking about how to create games for hybrid monetization. Georg, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the intro. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk to you guys today about certain things we did in one of our games, June's Journey. So, but before we start, I would like to give you a really quick intro on what I do, what my company is doing, and what the talk is about. So we at Wooga, we have a really strong mission about story-driven games. Our aim is to become the player's choice for story-driven games, and this means we really put the protagonist and the characters in the forefront of the game, marketing material, first-time user experience, but overall, all the engagement with the game should happen through the story lens. But also, of course, we're creating games, right? So it's not only about storytelling, it's about many, many other things. And a few things about myself. So I joined Wooga almost 8 years ago. Back then, we were still doing Facebook games on the canvas, and we're slowly transitioning to iPads, but also iPhones, and last but not least, also Google as a platform. And I started in Prospero. It's also a story-driven hidden object game. Launched this title. Then I had like a weird teenage phase, I would say, in Wooga, where I worked on many, many different projects, new games, existing games, helped out mostly in product management, but also in production. A little bit of game design here and there. And then, yeah, for June's Journey was one of the breakout hits we had in the past couple of years. I created this game from inception together with a really strong team to global launch. And then since a few months already, I'm working on a new undisclosed title I cannot talk about today. But what I can talk about today is June's Journey, and especially how we integrated rewarded video ads as an incremental revenue stream over in-app purchases. I will cover 4 areas, how we did it. And it starts really like when to think about video ad integration into your game, then what kind of KPIs should we aim for. This is mostly the product manager's job. And then together with game design and the engineers and ad monetization team, we should think about the game economy, session design, and ultimately also what kind of placements we should optimize versus adding new features and new placements ultimately to the game. A few words about June's Journey. It's a story-driven investigative hidden object game. It's set in the 1920s, so it's more romantic, historic game, where it has a really strong female lead, June Parker, and a cast of really colorful characters. You travel the world, and the core loop looks like this. You play hidden object scenes. On that, you spend energy, and you earn coins and materials. You earn stars and star boxes, and ultimately, you expand your decoration area, your island, with like different kinds of decorations, bushes, plants, buildings, different decor. And you really want to expand your island and grow it and put more things down. And all these decorations that on your island generate flowers. These reach certain thresholds, and you unlock new scenes by doing that. So it's not only decoration, but it's also functional in terms of value for your progression as a player. We started very early in the development cycle thinking about rewarded video ads. So I don't know about your development cycle, but the one in Wooga looks like this. We have like pretty defined phases with certain outcomes. So of course, we observe competitors, we see where the market is going, and then we explore certain ideas through prototyping. Hopefully also then are able to evaluate and really vest some of these ideas with our audiences. And we move to pre-production, scale up the team, build the technology, build tools, content pipeline processes. And then in production, it's really about building the game, soft launching it with a set of KPIs, not only for ad monetization, but of course also for retention, technical stability, and whatnot. And then you really prepare for global launch and hopefully run your game for 3 to 5 to 10 years. The game Prospero I started with in Wooga, again, 2012, we shipped in 2013, is still run today. So we are really talking about long-term retention games we're building here at Wooga. And that's why we put so much thought really into the early processes. And we want to be sure that we get the audience right, the gameplay right, and ultimately also reach product market fit and be able to grow it. So the outcomes of these phases, if we go a little bit more in detail, is the core loop for the evaluation prototyping phase. You should know by that time in Wooga, when you want to move to the next phase, greenlit, then what your core loop is. In pre-production, we really work on the feature backlog. And this is where we find already ideas for placements, and we commit to adding rewarded video ads to our games. Mostly in-app purchase driven, of course, economies, and those are getting built in production together with the design, the gameplay, progression systems. We also have to integrate, of course, SDKs, and we iron out the game economy, and we model it, how players should behave, will behave, might behave in the future. And then in soft launch, we add these placements. I think you could add the placements already in production, but most of the time, if you start with in-app purchases and then put incremental revenue from video ads on top, you want to get the in-app purchase economy right and reserve some stuff for placements that you can add in soft launch. This is when you get the data. This is when you can test the placements as well with your partners. And then hopefully when the game reaches product market fit, you add many more placements over time because you can afford the development time, but also you get more data and you scale your game. So this is the nutshell, the development cycle here in Wooga. And this is how we did it also for June's Journey, really thinking about the different parts of this game in different phases. So my job as a product manager is really thinking about capturing value through the right KPIs. So when you think about your player base, most in-app purchase-driven games have a very small amount of buyers, and then some of these buyers contribute a lot to the revenue. And of course, as a product manager, you ask yourself, okay, I want to convert as many free players into payers, but some I will never reach because free-to-play, in a sense, is an opt-in monetization system, right? You don't have to really pay to advance in your game. It's always free to a certain degree. And what we try to think about is how do we go about the free DAU base? And I would say with a strong in-app purchase economy, thinking about in-app purchase plus rewarded video ad economy, you should exactly aim for 15 to 25, hopefully more in certain geos. But I think if the economy is mostly driven by in-app purchases, reaching something higher than 40 or 50% is unreasonable, then maybe your in-app purchase economy is not strong enough. So we really set out, okay, it should be roughly 25%, maybe a little bit less in the beginning, but over time we would like to extract as much revenue from free players as possible. How do we capture the most value? So we try to have like really guiding principles. One is all DAU are eligible to watch ads. This means that ads do not cannibalize in-app purchases. And then you ask yourself, well, should payers watch ads? And the answer is yes. And actually payers watch even more ads, which makes sense if you think about how a payer opts into your monetization system for in-app purchases. They want to extract as much fun and value from their playtime, so they will watch ads. And then the other question is, would you take away ads from in-app purchase conversion? It's a tricky subject. I would advise not to do it. First of all, because it's way more simpler for yourself and for your players, that you don't have these tweener states between when is the conversion happening, when was it, is it enough value to actually not show ads anymore, and so on. And it makes a lot of things easier if we think about watching ads as the default for every player, and then go about planning all the rewards and all the progression systems around this one. We started with very, very aggressive KPIs.
George, like maybe to interrupt you for a while, because we have the question, and actually, you know, I think it very well resonates to what you're talking about. Like, what do you think is really kind of the most important thing, making sure that you are not cannibalizing your in-app revenue, how to actually make sure that you really, it's kind of incremental revenue, how actually you, in some way, it's always happening that, you know, growth of ads revenue, it's impacting this in-app, but how to make sure that it's not really the strong impact, at least of course from a negative perspective.
Yeah, so I think there's two ways to think about this. One is when you create the game and you really ingrain rewarded video ad into your in-app purchase and the whole game economy, it's a big gamble and you cannot really A/B test this, right? You basically make a gamble and then you try to be as diligent as possible in planning your game economy. And I will come to this in the June's Journey presentation today, how we made sure that we reserve some of the reward space around virtual goods, especially for in-app purchase only, and gave other things for ads. And the second thing is, if you have an existing game with in-app purchases and you would like to add more placements, you should think about two things. One is, how do you experiment with A/B testing? And second thing, what kind of structural changes would you make in your game economy to basically eat into some of the reward spaces around social systems, but also the in-app purchase economy? And would you like to trade some of these things, especially, let's say, low conversion items that are not frequently bought for in-app purchases? Some of those consumables are good candidates for ad revenue. But in general, I think you would like in an existing game to experiment with placements and just do really good A/B testing here.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah, so coming back to the KPI definition, as I said, we basically assume that everyone is watching ads, and watching ads should be the default for every session. And for that, we start really high with the engagement rate. 80% of the DAU should watch ads daily. This is good for engagement. And then, of course, to capture the value of the impressions we will ultimately create, 4 views per watcher. So this means per 100 DAU, 80% conversion, 4 views would mean 330 impressions, 320 impressions per day. And this is really my goal as a product manager. When I create a game, that I create as many unique eyeballs that our ad monetization team can sell the impressions for. And in the best case, it happens with one of the secondary goals we set without any churn. So watching ads should not impact negatively the retention. There's a lot of details to get right to be able to do that. And this is where also A/B testing comes into place, of course, long-term A/B testing, exclusion groups maybe, 5%, 10% of the player base never interacts with ads. You could test this and really see, okay, how good is the ad offering really? Then, in order to keep the game maintainable, you should maybe not start with more than 5 partner networks. In June's Journey, we started with less than 5. Over time, by growing the game, going to different geos, going also to different platforms, so not only Facebook Canvas, Android and iOS, but also Amazon, we had to think about the life cycle of all these SDKs. And you need a certain competition in the waterfall mediation that you want to optimize for. And you also want to keep it maintainable. So your engineers are not only updating SDKs every time a new Unity version comes out or doing debugging or something like this. So I think this is a trade-off you have to make, but you should think about the amount of partner networks your publishing department and your ad monetization department needs in order to sell these impressions. And ultimately, and this is more like an outcome of the whole exercise, is the LTV should increase, right? Predicted LTV should increase. And this will give you the competitive edge for your user acquisition team to bid higher in the market. Now it will become a little bit more game designing because we think about the game economy and the session design. When we think from a game economy, from a player perspective, players perceive games not as loops, but more like as a linear path through the content. So a player would say, I need energy to get more coins and materials in order to generate flowers and play new scenes. And what we focus on, of course, when we build our games is that they can become evergreen franchises up to 5 to 10 years. And what is sure, if you launch a game, that your game economy will change over time. Your game will grow, and especially will grow in the consumables area. So live operations will need to add and will want to add more rewards, loot boxes, any trophies, ticketing system, new timers, whatnot, right? All the new features that you will add to the game over time as a service will increase the amount of consumables. And we set as a guideline for our game, June's Journey, that we want to reserve the consumables for in-app purchases. We don't give them away for ads. And this is important as a concept. Not every game loop and every game genre lends itself to this kind of decision, but we said we want to be really clear on the things that you earn from gameplay, we will not always give away for ads. We might do it in the future with different placements, but in general, we should reserve them for in-app purchase. What we should do instead is use the hottest resources in your progression system for video ads. This means energy in our case, which is access to gameplay, fun, and the flowers that ultimately unlock new scenes. And this is very desirable from a player. They want to have more gameplay fun and they want to have new scenes all the time. So those things we give away for ads. And I will show you in a second how we would do it. We broke it down by session design. So there's a few phases we defined for every session the player will have. It starts with a farming phase. I think for ad placement, this is a very good phase to put your placements in. 3 stars for me. Then what happens to the player point is they get free stuff. And it's a pretty low engagement phase, right? There's a daily login feature, some construction timer is finished, an event has completed, maybe you collect the donations from your friends. So these are the sessions you can actually do like in a Starbucks waiting line in most of the games we play today that have some kind of farming mechanism, appointment mechanism. And then there's a certain planning phase. This can be very short, depending on the day or on the event that is running. But in general, this is where you check quests, which is where you start events or where you check into your event progress. Maybe there's a new shop item today you want to buy. And this results in really tactical thinking from the player. Something that is desirable as a goal is communicated, and then commitment starts from the player perspective. Player then runs into the action phase. Planning is done. Now I want to get the thing. And the action phase can be, in the core loop, be interchanged with the planning phase, action phase, planning phase, and so on. But I think we should keep ads from outside the action phase. Why? Because in our in-app purchase economy games, we create these really fun and immersive experiences, sometimes for years. And why would we give our best phase of the game, where the most fun is extracted, to another content? So we said we will keep this pretty much free from ads, which is content we cannot control that is shown on the device to the player. And then every action phase leads to an end at some point, and there's some kind of closure moment. Most closure moments start timers, or you wait for energy to replenish. Maybe you will start donating to your friends, something that you will actually say, okay, now it's good to put the device down. I will come back in 3 hours. And I think it's hit and miss with this phase. When we drew early inspiration from games like Farm Away, like one of the idle clickers, they mastered this closure phase for ad placements. Very, very smart, very good, well done. I think it's not perfectly suitable for all the games. That's why I put a check mark and an X, because it can work with checklists and setting appointments, maybe boosting something in timer or an appointment mechanic when you're not in the game. But for now, we say, well, we keep it more in the planning and the farming phase. Just a summary, in order to have really good engagement and retention, because those are key for long-term retention in a purchase economy, ads should not be harmful to the overall experience. And this means we have to invest into customer care, we have to invest into partner management, and in general, just a lot of, I would say, wrapping around the ad placements. So the service is high quality and players actually have fun watching the ads and do it over and over again. So some positive things, really easy to access. They should be no-brainer. That it makes total sense to watch an ads. And I think the time spent, 30, 45 seconds, maybe more if it's a playable ad, they should really reward this time you spend not playing the game right now, but watching an ad. You should feel smart doing it. There should be a tactical component to it. And again, just overall think about a positive reinforcement experience. Let's talk about the placements a little bit. So when we thought about the placements, we try to make as many players eligible for watching rewarded video ads in June's journey, which means introducing it early in the player journey, but not too early. Roughly 5 to 10 days, I think, when the habit of the game starts from the initial hook, you leave this phase, you become a habit player. This is a good time to introduce it because it should be part of the habit of playing a game, watching the ads. Then the first conversion is important. It should be a no-brainer placement. So players really want to play the game with ads. And then we think about as a service provider, really like how do we retain you as a player that you want to watch ads over and over and over. The value proposition should be good throughout the game. When we get these three things right, the first two ones are very hard, the no-brainer placement, and then the third one, retention, is also very hard. But if we get these three things right, we can then think about frequency. And I will show you now the placements that we have in our game, June's Journey, that actually fit into the session, but also just in general, what they help us with in terms of engagement, but also in terms of frequency.
Hi, Georg. Could I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Perfect. We have a question regarding a churn and watching rewarded videos and ads videos. What is your approach towards that? Is it a big concern for you, and how do you tackle that point?
Yeah, so when I talk about churn, I really talk about churning from the game. Of course, there are certain moments where you don't want to interact with the placement anymore, right? And this is something you can isolate. But I think really bad rewarded video ad experience might lead to actually churning from the game. And we made sure in June's Journey that we do certain things outside the placement to make sure that players have a good time. For example, we say, if you wait for the ad, for the fill from the provider, that if it takes 30 seconds or more, we just give you the reward. So this means we reward really the time spent trying to watch an ad, even if there's no fill, which was a little bit of a problem in some geos like a few years ago, where the demand side was not as strong. We also made sure that all the features that we have are somehow accessible also throughout watching the video ads. So it should not be only about the access to the feature itself, but maybe powering up the feature through the rewarded video ad. So you feel like it's still a free experience, but you want to do it.
Great, very insightful. Thank you very much. And to our audience, please keep on asking the questions. It's the unique opportunity to learn more about the way that Georg is doing things with June's Journey. Thank you.
Great. So now we have the no-brainer placement here. And it's called a Lighthouse in the beginning of the June's Journey experience. It happens in the farming phase, which means when you come back to the game, the concept is the landmark, and we call it this one the Lighthouse. You can do this every 20 hours. And it's a very important placement because it's kind of like the wallet opener to engaging with ads over time. How does it work? You have the groundskeeper, Mr. Talbot, greeting you, wishing you a good day. He's very happy to expand the island you are owning. And he asks you now, can you help me with the work? You tap the button, the call to action, that's it. And then the timer starts. And this is a refresh timer of 20 hours. And now, because there's 2 increments to the next pip, we call them in the progression, you can watch the ad. And then very clearly, we signal to you, job is done. You click once, you watch the ad, you get 2 increments, and you get a lot of flowers. Based on the progression of the players, it actually grows a little bit over time. And these flowers are almost worth a full session of gameplay. So it's very, very clear that these flowers you would like to have every 20 hours, and you would not like to wait 40 hours by not watching the ad. The ad is such a big improvement to this experience that players feel like it's a no-brainer. We added a lot of story to it. We added a lot of visual appeal to this feature, made it very, very simple from the user flow perspective. And it only shows itself when you can watch an ad or start the construction of the Lighthouse. And I think this is one of the examples where it makes sense to start your game economy early, because of course we factor the flowers into your game progression. As I said earlier, it's a no-brainer placement, but also you have to default watching ads. And then the game economy can be modeled to this 20-hour cycle that the flower income of the player is pretty steady. Very important detail to get this right. Then the second placement we had in soft launch was also in the planning phase, a little bit after the farming phase, and it's called the energy discount. And it varies a little bit from player to player, but roughly every 30 minutes when you have either one session and you start a second one, or in the same session, you can watch this placement twice. You can do a little bit of movie interaction. So this is when you select the scenes you play in the chapter, and you tap on this little camera icon, and it's a very clear value proposition. Instead of 15 energy cost per playing a scene, it goes down to 10. We make a visual change on the scene card. The play button has now a different color, which also is important for later down in the action phase where you lose basically this purple call to action as a play scene button. It becomes green again. It's a clear signal that I should watch the ad one more time after 30 minutes to maybe keep my discount running. So let's see the results. So these were the two placements we had, the landmark and the energy discount, and we reached 2.5 ads per day, which was pretty decent. But of course, we had to look at other things as well, not only the frequency, but also what is the engagement rate. Is the UX actually good? Do we get a lot of complaints? Ads not loading, not getting the reward? Is the CPM good? Can we actually sell these impressions? So in general, we were quite happy with most of the things, but we said, oh, well, the frequency is not really where it should be. So we experimented, especially with the energy discount, because it's something that we give you as a player, but you still have to engage with the game to actually get the benefit. And the landmark, as I said earlier, is not suited for really big changes in terms of experimentation, because if you give way more flowers, then at some point the economy breaks. So we said, well, let's try a new tutorial, let's try different trigger points, let's be a little bit more aggressive with the exposure of the energy discount, and try to increase the frequency, because potentially you could watch every 30 minutes of this placement. Why is it not more than 2.5? We asked ourselves. We couldn't really drive it up. I have to say, the experiments mostly failed, and we decided to add a new placement. And we call it challenges. It comes as a newspaper-themed help wanted feature, and it has 3 slots, and you can fill the task bar up. You then have a cooldown timer. And in previous games, we actually gave away this cooldown timer for skipping for hard currency, and now we swapped it for a video ad placement. Ultimately, all these tasks pay into this bar, and then you get this really desired 5-star box. So it's also in the planning phase, and the challenges really vary. If you're a very engaged player, you can watch 10 of those per day. But if you're just a casual player, 2 to 3 sessions a day, maybe you will add 1 or 2 more views per day. So what did it do? We experimented with an A/B test, of course, try to see how does it impact the frequency. I'm very happy to share that when we rolled out the challenges feature to 100% of our players, that we reached 4 views per day. But what also this placement helped us with was introducing more placements in the player journey. And ultimately, we were able to engage almost 100% of the players throughout the whole player journey. So the more content we add, the more placements we, of course, can sell over time, impressions over time in the player journey. But what is stunning is that we reach one of the really best-in-class engagement rates we see from our partners, almost 100% throughout the player journey. So for takeaways for you today, to think about what could I make changes in my game, or if I start a new game and I have an in-app purchase economy, how do I get incremental revenue from ads? Definitely default everyone is watching ads. Don't take it away from them. Players feel smart about doing it, and you should just default to everyone is doing it. Then divide your game economy maybe into 2 chunks. One is for rewarded videos, mostly boosting engagement, like the challenges feature and the energy discount. And these placements are worthless to a player who doesn't play a lot, but are worth a lot to someone who wants to engage. And the in-app purchases, really reserve them for the consumables, so players can still, with deep pockets and the willingness to convert, make a lot of progress in the game fast. And as you can see from the placements, they are actually intertwined, right? The more I spend energy, the more I can get consumables, the more I can make progress in the challenges. So LiveOps now has really good opportunities to add more things over time. And I'm really happy to say that this really the division between in-app purchases for consumables and the rewarded video ads for mostly boosting engagement has worked, and the engagement rate is so high, especially in the long-term retention. And I think there's always room for more placements, but you should start maybe with 2. One is a no-brainer one, which is kind of like the wallet opener, a very low engagement farming phase, and then a second one that scales mostly with more sessions. And then ultimately, if you have found product market fit and you can grow your game, then maybe it's time to add more placements and try to extract as many revenue potentials from your player base. That's it from me today. I wish you really good luck. I'm happy to chat, of course, answer your questions. Yeah, and then if you want to stay in contact with me, just write me an email, find me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for great presentation. Of course, we'll have the Q&A session at the end, but maybe just one question. There was a question around which tools do you use to do this A/B tests in your game?
Yeah, we have in Wooga a big set of internal tools we built ourselves because we have different platforms, different backend systems, and we said we build our own tools, config services, A/B services, lots of different attribution ways, of course. So a big internal property tools kit. Yeah.
But in this case, are you doing those tests in specific geos or like in the whole game?
It depends. Like when we say we want to have a little bit like more socially targeted features, we try to have geos be extracted. But most of the time we have easy splits like 30-70 for new cohorts, for example, seeing the different placements or not, the different features. So especially it depends on how many new installs you get per day and how long these placements actually need to come to an effect. So as I said earlier, we start to add the placements to the player journey between like 5 and 10 days. So depending on your install volume, you might need quite some time to actually wait for significant data. But I would always recommend really thinking about completely global splits, especially in terms of creating impressions. How to sell these impressions is a different question, of course. But for me as a product manager, I want to create as many impressions with the DAU I have and ultimately grow my DAU. So that's why I focus really on global tests.
Thank you very much, George. And of course, stay with us. There will be like Q&A session at the end. Please join Slido with GameCamp and then add the questions. It'll be a good opportunity to ask some additional questions for the end of the session. But now let's invite our second speaker, Tomer Weisman, who will be talking about hybrid growth strategy. So George was talking more about monetization side. Tomer from Huuuge Games, who will be talking about more the growth side of the hybrid games. Hey, Tomer, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Marius. Thank you very much. Great presentation by Georg, so really interesting. So I'll start with the hybrid growth strategy for us here at Huuuge Games. So my name is Tomer. I'm a part of the growth team here at Huuuge Games, managing all of our brand new titles, which is very interesting and a very interesting time for Huuuge Games as a whole. So let's begin. So this is the agenda for today. We'll start with a short intro of Huuuge Games marketing and publishing studio. Afterwards, growth UI in a nutshell. A bit focus about creative as the key for marketing. The hybrid growth focus points for me and the Huuuge Games growth team. And of course, some room for questions at the end. So a bit about Huuuge Games. I think most of you know us from 2014. Once we were bought back, after we were Game Lion before, we were bought back by the founder. And then in 2015, we had a huge breakthrough with a Huuuge Casino, followed by Billionaire Casino the year after. We started the hyper growth, really seeing great success with both of these social casino titles. And as of 2019, last year, we started the brand new Huuuge Publishing, which is doing a great work, working with external studios, bringing in the hottest games that we can work with, and really making great success with them. So this is a bit about our structure. The marketing team is compiled from the user acquisition team, growth team, retargeting, branding, and ASO. All of this together cannot work separately. You must collaborate with each and every one in order to really make a great success. I mean, we all know user acquisition, media buying, it's very important, very crucial. However, without the proper ASO, for example, you won't be able to sustain a good, solid game. Moving forward, how do we do our work, basically? So we do it by reaching our target audience anywhere, anytime, by using all of the channels that you see in front of you right now. So search, social networks, retargeting, as you all know, is really, it's not a buzzword, but it's becoming more and more important, crucial for gaming in the past year or so, and we're putting a real focus on it in the past few months. Of course, data, we're using our own internal HBI tool, taking data from everywhere we can get it, visualizing it to the media buying, to the management, in order to make things really clear and getting the action items based on data. So a bit about our Huuuge publishing. So as you can see, Team Huuuge is compiled from over 580 people, annual digital spend of over 100 million, 57 world-class marketing specialists. I think it's even more right now, but over 190 countries are playing our games, and basically we have right now 6 games in the portfolio from the Huuuge publishing from the different countries, as you can see, from Poland, Pakistan, Finland, Germany, Ukraine, sorry. And this is a bit about the portfolio of games and genre, which is I'm really proud to share with you guys today. As I said, most of you probably know us as a social casino company by Huuuge Games, Huuuge Casino, and Billionaire Casino. However, we have a shiny, bright new star, which is Star Slots, another social casino game, followed up by Huuuge Bingo Story, a great game with amazing creative work, and I'm sure you'd love seeing it and playing it. We have also our coffee break games, our evergreen games, which you can play whenever you want and just constantly play it. You can't get enough of it, really. Match 3, Matchland and Traffic Puzzle, idle games, Bubble Shooter, which I would like to say this is a great collaboration we have with Universal Studios. This is a great IP. I'm sure most of you know this nice little character, followed up by the movie from Universal Studios. So looks amazing, great game, and play it. And another action game, Bowland, and many more to come. I just don't have enough space here and time to share it with you guys. So a bit about Growth UA in a nutshell, our UA basics. So I would like to discuss 4 points with you guys today. First one is know your product, know your competition, media blend, and data is the key. So let's start with know your product. So first things first, I mean, you need to know your product. Even if you're not a big fan of the genre, you need to play it. You need to understand it. Why? Because you need to understand what's the game's appeal to the users. Why are they playing it? What brings them back to the game? You need to understand the players' motivations. This is a big, important part that I will discuss a bit more later, but most of us take a lot of focus into the game's features, but we need to understand how does these features make the players feel. Okay, understand the offers the user get, monetization side, really important, if it's good for them or not. Of course, this is the game economy side, but however, as media buyers, as user acquisition managers, you must understand how the user feels about everything he goes through the game. So again, play your game. Know your ad monetization if you have it, of course. This is about hybrid games, so you should have it. But know your ad monetization, know your placements, where they are placed, how many times they are placed for each geo. Like Georg said, a lot of players want to see ads. I mean, back in the days, it was disturbing. It was not fun for users to watch ads. But right now, they want to see it. They are engaging with it, and it's a great revenue stream. And most importantly, and I will repeat about this several times during this presentation, know your product's roadmap. And I will explain a bit more and elaborate about it later, but this is the most crucial part in my opinion. So know your product. Next up is know your competition. So,
hey, Tomer.
Hey.
Just quickly asking one question from the audience. I think it's quite interesting. When we go back to your team and marketing team structure, what is the growth team responsible for?
So growth team, basically, we have Huuuge Casino, Billionaire Casino, and Star Slots Casino, which are outside of the growth stage, let's call it, because they're already mature enough. We know they're good and solid, and we can have much larger budgets. We know that we can monetize on them. And the growth team's part is basically taking the new games, making the entire research before we even start advertising the game, competitors research, creative research, brainstorming about it, and just finding the best ways to start building the games from scratch and basically turning it from, let's call it, 0 to hero would be a good way to.
Right.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So if you basically place this team even before the whole UA, and obviously as the game matures for the life cycle.
Yeah, so basically the growth team takes care of everything there is to it. I mean, we work closely with the ASO, we work closely with the branding, we work closely with the ad monetization team. So we do the entire market research, basically to understand, okay, we get a new game either developed internally or brought through M&As. So we need to understand, okay, what is the genre, what is the thresholds, what is the marketing KPIs that we should put in front of our eyes before we even start doing user acquisition. You know, getting the benchmarks is super crucial to know, okay, when you start, for example, a campaign and you see good retention, okay, what can you consider as good retention if you don't do your research before?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So going back, so know your competition. It's really important. Like I said, you need to understand who are your competition, what they are doing and how they are doing it, where they are doing it. So use every available tool that you have. Speak to your colleagues, peers, attend webinars so that you're already doing a good job, and get the knowledge and inspiration for your next move. So basically, research. Don't be shy by speaking to your colleagues. I mean, we share information after all. This is an interesting industry to be in, so get every information that you can from every place that you can. Next up, media blend. This is a very important part, but I think that these days when things are getting more and more automated, it might seem a bit less sexy, but I think it's still important to know your media blend based on your game, based on your genre. So first up, have a diversified media partners blend and find the best one for your product. Now, why am I saying find the best ones for your product? It's you need to understand first what is the features and capabilities of each and every media partner that you might choose by media type and media partner. Match these partners to your games based on their capabilities. Okay, so not every media partner will have the capabilities that are important for your game. Either it's mostly in-app purchase game with some ads, or vice versa, in-app ads with some in-app purchases. Not all media channels are a good match for all games and genre. This is also super important. All depends on your goals. Get acquainted, ask the right questions. If you want to talk about it, we can do it offline later. But you need to ask a lot of questions in order to understand each and every media type and channel, the way they work, and if it's a good fit for you guys. And really important, always have a good pipeline ready. I mean, when you're testing and you're testing, sometimes you are I don't know, disappointed with one of your media partners, or vice versa. You want to scale, but you think that if you'll scale with the existing ones, maybe the performance will go down a bit. So always have a good pipeline ready. Talk to these partners, have them ready, and eventually it will just do good for you guys. Next up, data is the king. Okay, so work closely with your product team. Know their goals. I mean, as user acquisition partners, yes, we have a lot of impact about CTR, working with the creative team and the conversion rate, targeting the right audience, IPM as a result, CPI. Yes, we can build audiences and we can use lookalikes and target the right event. Eventually, without knowing the goals of your product team, it will not be worth anything. Second is learn the different curves of the game and how you can impact it and what you can't. I mean, like I said, we have impact on on certain stuff, but on certain things we just can't affect. So know your LTV curve, your attention matrix, your DAR, your ARPDAR, your RPPU, K factor, etc. Putting a lot of emphasis on K factor, I think that, and I think many will agree with that, without organic user intake, no game can eventually exist. You can't just rely on user acquisition, paid user acquisition. Important thing, creative is the key. Now, this is a really crucial part that we put a lot of emphasis on here at Huuuge Games. So this is a nice creative cycle that I think that most of you can utilize and should utilize either internally or using outsource to really have a nice cycle of inspiration, innovation, and iteration. So what exactly does it mean? So inspiration part, it's not a shame to do competitors' research, okay? Know what your competitors are doing. Is important. Don't be afraid to copy and paste just based on your needs, and understand the industry trends. So for example, you have playable ads, you have misleading ads, you have live action ads, a lot of things that are going on, and a lot of competitors are using it. So don't be shy, take inspiration, use it on your own, and just see if it works for you. Not everything necessarily will work for you, but who knows? It's a good thing to get some inspiration for free, and which brings to the next part, which is the innovation. Brainstorms are a must. Plan meeting with your creative team. Plan meetings with your creative team and your product team. Take everything you can from your company, from your really creative people. Okay, you never know what it will bring out. So I give you some examples that are outside of the box thinking that we started, and I know for a fact that some of our competitors even copy pasted it. So it's flattering because it's coming from inside of the company. It's free, and it's just like bringing the best minds together to come up with new, fresh, creative ideas. Next up, iteration. So A/B test, and then A/B test again, the A/B test, and then test some more. You can never test enough. So take your stars and make them shine even brighter. So if you find something that is working well for you, so for example, if misleading ads work well for you guys, okay, take your misleading and start changing some elements, see what works best for you. If you find something, stick with it. It's no shame to stick with something good for as long as it takes, but of course always have something in the backup for the future, and test all the time. Now I know this is something that we have a nice budget here at Huuuge Games, but for each and every game, I think it's really important to have a dedicated test budget for new creatives.
Tomer, can I have the question?
Yes, please.
Great. There was the question around this sync with the product team. Like, how do you sync with the product team, and does it differ by the different game types? It's like, it's different for like, those games that you know very well already versus those that you are just working on. How does it look like?
So first things first is, the first thing that I'm asking for each and every game's product team is, can you please send me the roadmap of the game? Okay, what are you planning? Of course, going back to my first slide, play the game. Okay, play the game if you can. Play the top 1, 2, 3 competition of the games. Okay, understand what is the game's appeal, what is exactly this genre, what is the motivation of playing the game, and then understand, okay, what are we planning to do which is similar, that is not similar, how each and every feature, game economy change should impact your work. And basically just, once a week, sit down with them. You have like sprints every couple of weeks, for example. Okay, know what's going on. That way you'll be able to plan ahead much more efficiently. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
So as I was saying, test all the time, have dedicated test budget. This is super important. Just a few examples of our iterations. So we had a really good video ad with diamonds and 25 plus, working well. So why not use it? Just change the element, see if it's still working well with the same game mechanics, just different elements. So we tried it with the bonus and the cherry picks. Works well as well. Why not try again with the bonus? And I can tell you that each and every one of those worked well. This is minor changes. It doesn't take a lot of effort from your creative team. It's time efficient. You don't need to think all the time about new creatives. And also for seasonality times, always nice to have the same game mechanics, but with Santa Claus for Christmas. Also worked well. Great animation and great elements that were added. And everything really worked well for us. So let's continue. Another approach we have here at Huuuge Games is the user-centric approach. So as I was saying, sometimes a lot of companies, when they think about their creative work, they say, okay, let's bring out the best features we have, the most eye-catching, appealing features, the characters. I can agree, but that's not always the best thing to do, like all the time. In addition to showing the game features, you need to understand what motivates your players to play the game. So first thing is excitement. So if you have a game, if you have a match 3, show the combos, show defeating powerful enemies and playing with friends. This is exciting. Second thing, we all like to succeed. So why not show a winning battle, finishing a level, hitting the jackpot? And you can think of many other ways for each of your games. I mean, you all coming from different genres, so you can think of amazing ways to emphasize these achievements and success. Very important thing is the social connection. I mean, player versus player and trading with friends. I mean, the live action is really working well. Chatting with club members if you have this available for you. Again, all depending on your genre, but you can think about a lot of player motivations. That's why, again, know your product. Expertise, if it's like, okay, let's give you a challenge, you know, the text, only 8% can solve this puzzle. Can you? And showing like a nice puzzle that you need to have 1, 2, 3 great moves in order to solve it, but it's a bit tricky. Becoming the best, stopping the leaderboards, which also connects to social connection. And last but not least, at least for now, it's the escapism. If you have like a game that is, for example, June's Journey, that gives the player to escape to the 1920s, also raising dragons, becoming virtually rich, etc., etc. Okay, so a bit about why we're here for and how we can take all of the things that I've just talked about and basically know what to focus on when growing a game on the marketing perspective.
Tomer, hey.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the next topic, there's also one more question on creative testing for all those variations that you mentioned. How much are you spending on those? I guess in a percentage-wise, also for all new games versus the games that has been on the market for a while.
So it varies basically on I think that also Georg talked about it, how many users you're bringing on a daily basis and how much budget you have in general. But I think that even if you take 5% or 10% of your budget based on, I mean, the amount of creatives that you have, because if you don't have a strong creative team that can deliver a lot of creatives, so you don't need a lot of budget to test, you know, 5, 6 creatives. It all depends on a lot of factors, but I think that 5%, 10% can be a nice chunk of budget to test creatives on.
Great. Thanks, Milin.
Cool. Okay, so marketing approach for in-app ads. Okay, let's start. So really important, focus on pre-install matrix, know the IPM. I mean, back in the days, everyone was thinking about CPI. You can't have a good CPI without really improving your IPMs. How you can do that? By having the right creative that is appealing, but also connects well to your storefront. So take your creative team, ASO team, try to find the right connection between them in order to really improve your IPM as much as possible. Now, why am I saying that? Because if you don't have a great budget to spend marketing, so if you improve your IPM, you can get more users. More users, you can learn more about your game, if it's good, if it's not good, if you need to improve certain aspects of it. So IPM should be your best friend. Loyalty and engagement is the key. Again, going back to Georg, which gave a great example. So yes, if a user will download the game, that's amazing, but you need to make it a retaining user. However, if he's retaining, but he's not engaging a lot, so it doesn't monetize well. So you need to understand, okay, are my users loyal? How many times they are logging into the game? How many times they are engaging with which features and with which ads? Okay, so maybe you have, I don't know, 4 placements of rewarded videos in the game, but one of them, I mean, no one interacts with. So maybe you should drop it, maybe try putting it elsewhere. Product-wise, but I think that we as marketing people can give a lot of insights about the game itself by playing with it and knowing it better. Don't get too excited with sophisticated targeting, okay? Now, this is the way I see it, but maybe you guys can prove me wrong, and maybe it varies from genre to genre, game to game, experience to experience, but with in-app ads, you need to focus more on bringing users in with the lowest CPIs that you can get, while putting emphasis on retention. Now, if you'll try, I don't know, more sophisticated targeting methods that will most likely cost you more, eventually it will not be worth it. Now, why am I saying it? Because you know exactly you should know what is your LTV, which I will speak about later, but you need to know what is your LTV, what is your ROI, and then you'll be able to set like proper KPIs and benchmarks for you. Try many media partners. Spread the budget around. Now, I'm saying try many media partners. I'm not saying try 20. Okay, you need to try little by little media partners. Spread the budget around. Now, the reason I'm saying it, because if you put too much pressure on one source, one campaign, two sources, whatever, eventually your CPI will go up and it will make you unprofitable. Next thing is explore markets. Now, as in-app ads, you know that you're not reliant on payers. You're not reliant on these 5 or 10% of the entire user base that everyone is competing for in-app purchases, and you can spread around for other markets. Now, you'll be surprised by the potential. The reason I'm saying it, and because I was surprised myself, with one of our games, we had like a test campaign running worldwide, and we were surprised after communicating with our ads monetization team. Hey, Iraq is working wonders. So you can't be surprised. Don't wipe off any geos without trying a bit. You'll be surprised because it's good ROI. The investment shouldn't be so high. So try, test. Next point, work closely with your ad monetization team, know their data, and plan forward based on it. Now, average revenue per install, what is the CPM in different geos? Where can we focus more? Where can we bid higher? Okay, so maybe right now, we're saying, yes, I'm getting good volume in the UK, for example, but if I'll suddenly talk to my ad monetization manager and he was like, listen, your CPM is off the charts in the UK, and I was like, okay, maybe I can bid higher, maybe I can get more users and eventually increase my revenue intake from the UK or from any other country, any other media source or whatever. And get to know your game CRM activity. Now, the reason I'm saying it is because a big part of your retention is the way your CRM works. So you need to find a common language with your CRM activity, know how they're speaking to your customers, your players, and maybe you will be able to use the same language when you speak to them in your ads, and then the user will feel that his entire user flow is consistent and it looks great, as I was saying with the creative and the App Store front. So get to know your game CRM activity. Last but not least, I said it once, I will say it again, and I will say it a few more times later on, know the product's roadmap, understand how it should affect the game's matrix. The reason I'm saying it, for example, if the game product decides to remove a rewarded video placement or add a rewarded video placement, okay, and you don't know about it, but all of a sudden you come back to the office on Monday after the weekend and you see an increase in revenue. You'll never know about it unless you really know the product roadmap, okay? If he's changing the way the rewarded video looks, if he changes anything inside the game, know it. It's a good thing. That's why weekly syncs is super crucial and important for every product. Let's move forward to the in-app purchase marketing approach. And again, not a surprise. Focus on pre-install matrix. IPM is your best friend. Now, I know that in in-app purchases, we are really focusing on payers and the ROI that we can get from these payers. But I think that it's also super important here to try to improve the IPM as much as possible, because eventually you have some sort of a budget, okay? You have a budget, you want to utilize it as best as possible and make the most out of it. So as much as you improve your IPM, you can use your budget better, learn more about your users, bring more users to the game, and who knows, maybe the one user that got away was the whale that you're chasing after and you've just missed it. So focus on IPM. Second, know your target audience, understand where and how you can get to them. Now, the reason I'm saying it, because with researchers that we've done here internally and researchers that I've seen outside, you need to understand in which geos you can find your payers. Now, I can tell you that in some cases, you're running worldwide. It's amazing. You see some revenue here, some revenue there, but eventually, I don't know, only the top 15 countries that you're targeting brings you 90% of your revenue. So know where your target audience is, okay? Try to get to them and focus. Eventually, you're monetizing on purchases, so it's super crucial. find the best media partners that suits your needs and goals and focus on them. Now, unlike what I said about in-app ads, here you can and you should search out the more sophisticated targeting capabilities, such as, for example, Tiroirs from Google. You need to, of course, implement the Firebase SDK, but I highly recommend it. It can make wonders. TCPA, AEO, VO, some DSPs have great algorithms. Don't be afraid to test them out. A lot of things that you need to find in order to really focus on the several media partners that will make the job done, get the job done for you guys. Invest in countries where you see profit potential. Going back to what I said, okay, you can run worldwide. You can target a lot of countries, interesting countries that shows you, yes, I have great day 7 ROI. However, you need to know who brings you to your end goal. So if you see that the majority of progression, the LTV progression, is coming from a specific set of countries, focus on them. You can still test other countries, but you need to understand exactly where your revenue is coming from and invest mostly there. Again, know your ROI and LTV curve development. This will help you tremendously when you want to focus and plan ahead your budget and your goals, telling your media buyers, okay, this is what you need to get by day 1, day 7, day 30. Eventually, let's say, for example, your end goal is LTV 100% payback on after 1 year. So you need to set the proper goals and not to put too much pressure to reach it, but not be too lenient when putting the targets. Work closely with your CRM and plan your activity accordingly. So I can give you a great example, 4th of July, that just happened recently. So you have a lot of CRM activity about it, lots of nice features about it. Everyone is talking about it. So why not have a nice creative ready for user acquisition? Have the creative ready. So when the user is clicking on it a few days before 4th of July, a few days after, he will still understand why he's seeing a lot of features of 4th of July inside the game.
Tomer, can I
Yes.
have the question?
Please.
Like you mentioned LTV and ROAS curves. Are you tracking, if you look about hybrid, when you have like the revenue coming from in-app purchases and from ads, are you tracking two separate LTV curves, or you are looking at overall ROAS curve? How does it look like kind of from practical point of view?
So actually, you're making me jump ahead of myself because I was planning on talking about it. But basically, I can tell you that we're we're measuring the curves separately. It of course requires a lot of resources and data work, but I will speak about it a bit more later. But yes, we are measuring it differently. It all depends on the game itself, of course, and each and every game and the major monetization model of it dictates us on which curve we should focus more.
Sure.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I said it once, I'll say it again. Know the product's roadmap, understand how it should affect the game's matrix. Here I can give you a nice example. For example, if you're using offer walls as an example, and you're saying, hey, dear user, if you can reach level 50 after 7 days, you will get your reward. Okay, that's great. It can perform wonders. Players will deposit in order to reach the level and at the desired time. However, if, for example, the product is about to change a bit the game economy, making the first beginning of the game, the first few levels, a bit more easier to progress in order to maybe improve the early retention matrix. But all of a sudden, you see that a lot of users are getting to your desired level before time, okay? And you don't know it, you spend a lot of money on it, and you won't be able to react quickly because it will take some time until you understand, okay, that something changed in the game, and you can spend a lot of money and just waste it, not spend it even. So really important, really crucial. Hybrid, okay? So we have in-app purchases, a lot of things that you need to know about it. We have in-app ads, a lot of things you need to focus about it as well. However, you can take a lot from each based on if you're focusing on in-app ads or in-app purchases. So know your product monetization distribution. Only then you'll know where to focus. So for example, if you have a game that is mostly ads oriented, okay, so you need to work closely with your ads monetization team. Know the LTV curve, know the ARPDAU, okay? This is super crucial because if, for example, you set yourself a goal that, let's say that a couple of months from now, I want to add $5,000 to my daily revenue income, okay? So you need to know your ARPDAU. You need to know how much does it cost you to retain a user, the cost per retaining user, okay? What is your stickiness eventually? And then based on your knowledge, you'll know, okay, I need this budget because I have this CPI to bring this amount of users that only this percentage will remain in the game. And then I know the ARPDAU. Eventually, you'll be able to calculate how much you need to invest in order to gain this revenue target that you have in a couple of months from now. Next, once you know your primary monetization model, start building your strategy and budget allocation accordingly. So as I was saying, I mean, if your primary monetization model is in-app purchases, for example, so yes, search for the more sophisticated targeting media partners that can help you reach those payers, help you reach those whales. Become Moby Dick, okay? But really, only once you know the monetization model and the distribution, you will know where to focus. Try measuring each revenue stream separately. Now, I know this is a bit tricky, and as I was saying, it requires a lot of resources. However, I can tell you that, for example, we're working with AdMob, and we implemented the ad level, the impression level data, which helps us understand from which channel, country, campaign the ad revenue is coming from for some of our games. It makes it a lot more easier to understand because, for example, on hybrid games, for in-app purchase-oriented games, you sometimes see a campaign that just doesn't generate any payers. However, bring you great DAU, great engaging users, but unless you really understand that this campaign is bringing DAU and engaging users that are watching your ads, you will most likely pause it, and then you won't understand why your revenue is dropping from your ads. So try measuring it. I know it's difficult, but it's super important for you to really be accurate as possible when you plan your marketing strategy. Check for the benchmark of your game and genre. Know if your game is holding up to the standards. The reason that I'm saying this is because sometimes we're so, we're seeing, I don't know, retention rate day one, 50%. And we're saying, wow, this is amazing. I mean, half of the users we're bringing in are coming back at the first day. Day 7, it's 20%, great ratio, okay? However, if you suddenly understand that the benchmark for this game and genre is day 1, 70%, and day 7, it's 50%, so you're like, okay, I'm not doing anything. Something is wrong. I need to go back to the drawing board and improve the game and the retention. So a lot of attention to the benchmark. Know the product's roadmap. Yes, you're seeing this line again. This should be the guideline when you're working with your marketing team. Really, know the game. Know every change there is to it. Have the product team share the roadmap. Go into it once a week, sync with them once a week. Know when the update is being released, when it's being rolled out. If it's a forced rollout, know it. Then you'll be able to say, okay, before the version release, these were my metrics. This release is supposed to improve my retention matrix on day 1, day 7, or my in-app purchases. The offers got a bit more lower. So yes, you need to know exactly what has changed because, I mean, sometimes you go to your dashboards and you see, oh yes, this is amazing. My ROAS went up, and you're just happy and pleased. Most of us tend to, if you see something good, you say, wow, that's amazing. I don't know why. I don't care. It's just amazing. We just tend to dig into the details only when things go south. So also, you need to know everything there is to the game. And that's it for me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me with this email. And if you have any questions now, we'll have the Q&A soon. Thank you. Mariusz, I think you're muted.
Yes, thank you, Tomer, for a great presentation. So, let's go to the Q&A session. So let's invite George and Mateusz as well. And of course, all who listen, please feel free to join us at Slido and add the questions. Yeah, so maybe we start with the question around do you see actually any gaming genres where actually this hybrid model is getting stronger? Like where it's like, this uplift is getting bigger, and like if you have that type of game, that's most likely this hybrid should be more and more important part of our job and topic.
So I can say from our side that we started incorporating a while back rewarded videos in our social casino games. That's one thing. I think that it's getting bigger and bigger in the social casino genre. But I think that also if you take a look at the puzzle and word games, bubble shooters, idle games also, I think that Georg gave a great example for how you implement it in idle games, that if you want to improve something, then you have a timer, so you can expedite the process by watching a rewarded video. And I think that also in Match 3, you see a lot of it going on in Match 3.
Yeah, to add to this, I think that also it goes the other way around, that more hyper-casual games try to add in-app purchases as well. And it's kind of interesting that everyone wants to find basically the sweet spot. But I think on the in-app purchase side, I see more and more puzzle games do it. And they also do it by adding other monetization systems, like the battle pass has been added in the last 2 years quite a bit. And I always wonder, like, if we look at top 200 games, like, do we feel like they are actually adding more features because they're top 200 games already? So they actually have the longevity of their franchise to add more stuff. And then you also see more placements over time. And there's also the other camp, which is like a Supercell camp, except for Heyday, I think. They almost run no ads at all, right? So I think it's very important to think about the economy reward space. The most social, casual, accessible the game is, the more you have to think about the reward space of your economy also for social interactivity, which is not so easy to do. Like, you cannot just expand the reward space in an already existing game. So at some point you need to go back to the drawing board and I think create a new game to do certain placements. But I definitely see like more puzzle games, more casual games, try to do hybrids as well. Yeah.
Cool. If I could just add 2 cents to that, I think I'll just echo what Tomer and Georg said. On both sides, we see that basically both the traditional EAPs are going more into ad-funded and traditional ad-funded going more to EAPs. So we see this market convergence. If we can bring up the slide that we could see on here as well, that basically all the traditional, we can't put them in the buckets anymore. But I think what's even more important about why this trend is being created is basically on what we heard today from both our guests, is that we see it's a very well thought process and launching all those teams that could work in silos in the past, now becoming a very close connected system. And I think that's also what shapes the whole ecosystem in gaming. Definitely the game economy, the game balance, understanding if you more appealing to the broader niche or actually trying to make it for a smaller but more targeted part of players. So I think this is very important to keep in mind, that in the end it should make sense how to what you're appealing with your game into. But we see definitely that on the relative growth, this convergence of going more into hybrid and again subscription, battle pass, and other things.
So I think you're exactly right, and I think that a lot of the part of the reason that a lot of IAP going to ads is because, I mean, players already know that ads is a part of the games. They are okay with it. They want to engage with the ads because they know they will gain something from it. Now, I'm talking specifically on rewarded videos, but you can take as a result also offer walls as an example. So it's a good thing. Players are aware of it. They want to have it because they know otherwise they will have to pay for apps, and who wants to go back to that?
But do you see actually more situations like in your games where like if you have that game, that monetization starts to be a little bit differ by different like geos. So like, okay, for example, like, in-app driven is like, main part of monetization in, let's see, in US, but we see actually that we really wouldn't be able really to, to grow this in-app revenue stronger, like let's say in India, Indonesia, because like in general, the conversion rates are way lower. But actually when we add this ad monetization, actually at much faster pace and much stronger pace than in case of these tier 1 countries, that actually makes sense for that game.
Yeah, so one thing that I observed was that the share of AppDAO actually is pretty stable in the West. And it's also just a proxy to the ecosystem, which is if a country doesn't have a lot of high conversion players or players spend a lot of money, it's not so interesting for the demand side either. Like, so the CPMs will also drop, which is kind of interesting in dynamics between these things. I think the share is always something that we have to look out for, but it's also not something we can really control, right? I mean, as game makers, we try to have a worldwide appeal as much as we can, especially in the West, of course, but sometimes also in the East, depending on your studio. And what we see is that we need to be able to actually track also, like, where do certain networks have problems? Where do we have fill rate? Where do we have like UX problems, offensive ads, and so on and so on? So I think by committing to rewarded video, especially in the beginning, you put it so deeply into your game economy and your game progression system that you really want to maintain this service and keep the quality of the service up for many, many years. And just one anecdote, like when we had June's Journey on Facebook Canvas, back then when we launched the game in 2017, it was still already hard to find a good mediation partner for Facebook Canvas, because they're just on the web demand side, but they're shattered. And so the game will move to different platforms over time. So when we commit to this very early on, it's very deep into the systems, we have to make sure that we're also able to deliver and ads. And then it comes really to like, hey, should payers maybe get, backfill of our portfolio ad, or like cross promotion, these kind of things. So this can drive down CPMs quite drastically if you actually have geos where the demand side is very, very bad. Yeah.
So just adding a few more words about that. I think that the frequency cap and the amount of videos that you allow a user to watch should vary between country to country, because in some countries you can't monetize with in-app ads. So you can do some A/B testing and to understand, okay, what is the maximum amount that I can show, for example, in India or in Brazil, in order to make my ads count and increase the revenue stream, because you still want to run there, you see potential. So you need to find again, sweet spot is my most favorite couple of words, but you need to find a sweet spot to really make things count for you guys.
And actually, just maybe to add, because that you mentioned this frequency, that's actually one of the questions. Do you limit the frequency of rewarded videos for users? Like, are you trying to control it? Like, George, you were sharing some insights around that, but like how actually you are trying to actually making sure that this balance the churn and that.
So I had really big dreams when I created Journey. Maybe our VIPs, maybe our payers only see like 5 seconds YouTube like bumper ads, or they only see cross promotion from like Playtika network, and it's not feasible. Like if you want to like basically divide your player base into payers and non-payers, the amount of payers is so low that actually for brands or basically for any demand side, it's not interesting anymore. So what we thought about was, okay, where do we can actually really go down the rabbit hole into like this game frequency in the challenges feature. All the other features are basically like limited by just timer, and the challenges features was a feature that we needed for payers to have like 8, 10, or 12 views per day. And then our ad monetization side, on the publishing side, when we sell these impressions, we try to do a lot of things to make sure that players don't get too repetitive ads as well. And I gotta say, like I had really big dreams, like in terms of brands come in, and because we did it so well, but you need so many DAU to be really interesting for brands.
Yeah.
Also, like the games we create are pretty targeted. Like June's Journey, mostly played by female players 45 and older, mostly in the US and the Western market. how many brands do need exactly this inventory? So, so it's kind of like we experimented a lot in terms of frequency, thinking about this in other games as well. But in June's Journey, we said, okay, let's make it very, very reliable, and then rather create one more impression tomorrow from a new DAU for the network than saying we have someone watching 20 ads a day. There's diminishing returns for the player, but also diminishing returns after the 4th or 5th and 5th impression per day. So we try to keep it really sane and reasonable, and we don't actually divide anymore between payers and non-payers. It's just everyone has ads. Let's try to make the market decide how much they are worth it. Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, users are not stupid. If you suddenly disappear the rewarded videos for the payers, they were like, "What? Why? Because I'm paying, I don't get the chance to gain more I don't know, in-app currency by watching an ad." But I think that, I mean, maybe trying to have segments based on geos, for example, and segmentizing by that, by, I don't know, similar CPMs would be a nice way to approach this issue.
So, gentlemen, I have a question that I'm getting a lot from my clients, and I think you partially or mostly answered it throughout the presentations. But I guess if you could give this recap or summary, let's say I have a studio, I have a game that has been mostly AP or mostly ads for most of the time. I want to move into hybrid monetization. What are the best practices for this transition?
That's a very interesting question. I think it's more product-wise, because you need to find. I mean, like Georg said, you can't take an existing product and just push rewarded videos, for example, to it. You need to understand how it will impact your game economy and your user experience. Or maybe Georg can answer this question better.
So I would talk a little bit about the journey we had in Wooga. When June's Journey was launched, and we had like really like stellar results in terms of engagement rate, CPMs, everything was like through the roof. Of course, we try to match this success in other games and try to retrofit and add really like placements. And it takes more time, and you reach not the same result, but it's worth it. Especially since like the whole ad monetization thing is all about quality control, ad mediation, the SDKs. If you have this kind of technology stack in one game, it makes sense to bring it to other games as well. And then the placements may not be as strong. So we maybe reach engagement rates, like not like 100%, but maybe like 30, 40, 50%. And I think then it's worth it. But at some point, you have to create a new title.
Easy.
Just think about this from a player perspective. Like you play a game for 1 year, and then how my game state is transformed into another game state, So it's unreasonable to think about this in June's Journey. Like, how would I do this? Like, not having the landmark upgrade for a year. How does my item look like? Very different. So we talk to other Playtika studios as well from Wooga side, and we try to put placements in where we feel like, okay, how is in generally for this kind of audience ad conversion working? So, and one placement I would always try is, like, I call it the loot box in the shop tour. Basically, if you have some kind of in-app purchase store, put a loot box there, put some other reward there. The ad wheel is something that worked quite a bit in puzzle games over the years, and then try to just feel like, hey, is my company ready in terms of data, in terms of processes, in terms of selling ads in the market? And I would also maybe not start with a game that has less than 400,000 DAU worldwide, because it's not really worth it to try to skim in-app purchases off a little bit and then trade it from ads and then knowing, okay, yeah, CPMs are fluctuating. It's not worth it. So yeah, again, like some placements make sense, easy to take on, but you don't want to have just a bad implementation of, like a piggy bank or an ad wheel that nobody wants to interact. So you have to make the effort, yeah.
And more like to maybe to Tomer, like there was like you were mentioning about like organic uplift, like how do you work together with like the ASO team to get this uplift, and do you put into your consideration for your LTV curves? How does it look like?
So yeah, of course. I mean, when you look at paybacks, you take into consideration the paid user acquisition and of course the organic revenue coming in. So yes, we're working with the ASO closely. To understand, okay, what is the creative that we're using? Does it match? Localizing everything is a crucial part. I mean, if you're not localizing, I mean, okay, it's okay if you're targeting only English speaking, so you can just use one storefront version. But if you go to countries that are super proud of their language, you won't be able to succeed. For example, in Germany, you won't be able to succeed unless you're localized, unless you're localizing the storefront. Another thing that we're cooperating with the ASO team is to really understand where should we focus on now. Let's call it conquering a geo. Okay, so you can go geo by geo, understanding what is the trend now. Can we go in? Can we go in there? What amount of installs? How much do we need to spend in order to climb up the ranking? And what is the user experience that we need to have in order to really improve our organics? And of course, organics, you know, are valuable users. They are coming with their intent. It's not an ad. So there maybe more and more players are hiding there.
Great. One more question on this whole balance, because it seems it's a very big topic.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have any tips, or how do you calculate the amount of rewards you give for each interaction? So let's say a reward for winning a stage, a goal, anything else that you can give. So what's the end value to achieve such balance?
Yeah, so we try to not put a different, like, directly price tag on it, but definitely there are some proxies you can use. You know, how much does a gameplay cost, or how much does this and that cost? What we did, and I think it's kind of like, in hindsight, it's a little bit like a panic moment when I think about this, but we give away like 20 to 30% of all the flowers you can get, like you earn in Geek Journey for ad. Like, just think about this. Like, the whole life cycle of the game has, like, I don't know, 50,000 flowers, and we give away 30% of those for free. But what we get from it is retention, right? So, if you ask me for this price tag, yeah, it's quite expensive. But on the other hand, if it's incremental in terms of revenue and engagement through retention, then I would say it's worth it, because how long do you have to build a game to retain one player, like, just for one day? You know, it takes quite some time. So for the energy discount, we were really simple, just saying, hey, you know, we price our session design and our energy per session, basically gameplay per session. We price it in a way that we assume you always watch ad, and that's what kind of like the progression system we built to compare to the content production cycle we have is in check.
Right.
But always think about if you have, like, basically a consumable economy, and some of these puzzle games actually don't have a deep consumable economy. And then if you give away, like, your pre-game boosters, or, you know, like 5 moves for free for an ad every day, maybe you're to lose. And then you have to really think about this, is what happens to a buyer? Like, do I take it away, and all these things? So that's why we basically stay out from the consumables as much as we can, and mostly boost progression and engagement, because then players decide basically what is the price tag. The energy discount means if I don't play, it's 0. You know, the value is, for us as a business, is there, but for the players, 0. But if I play like 30 minutes straight, the value is very high. So I think in terms of this concept, I would always try to approach this pricing problem.
Okay, that's I think great conversation. Like, thank you guys for like all your time and your effort you spent with, like, sharing your knowledge and experience with the crowd. Thank you very much. For the audience, please remember there will be next webinars happening in a few weeks. Just come back to the, like, Campus Warsaw and the GameCamp website. So thank you very much. We would have, like, one request, if you could just fill out short survey that will be, like, shown on the next slide. So please actually give us feedback about that session, and what we can actually, how you like it, if you see the value coming from that. So see the link bit.ly GameCamp July. And again, thank you to all speakers. Thank you for your time. I think it was very valuable. Thank you very much.
We had a great time.
Thank you, guys. You're great.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.